Shabbat Shalom everyone. Welcome to Science Lab. The signs are happening because Lord Jesus is coming.
Every day we are looking at some of the signs that are happening around us. In this episode, we are going to see the signs in Israel.
On August 2nd, 2020, tensions continue to simmer in Israel's north as the Israeli military announced it conducted airstrikes on Syrian military targets in response to an attempted attack on their shared border.
On August 3rd, 2020, the Israel Defense Force said it struck Syrian Air Force targets, including observation posts, intelligence systems, anti-aircraft artillery, command and control systems.
The IDF or Israel Defense Force reported on August 2, 2020 that the Iron Dome missiles defense system intercepted a rocket fired from the Gaza Strip into Israeli territory. The launch set off Syrians in the southern town of Sderot as well as in the Shar HaNegev Regional Council in the northwestern Negev. As Syrians played, dozens of citizens were enjoying the inauguration screening at a new drive-in cinema complex at Sderot's municipal market. A vehicle was damaged by shrapnel following the interception near the Gaza Strip border. No group has yet claimed responsibility for the attack. The strike were in response to an incident the night before in which 4 terrorists crept to the border's fence and placed an explosive device in an unmanned IDF outpost. The IDF posted security footages of the event, including the moment of terrorists were killed in an explosion from an overhead strike. The military also published the photos of the backpack used as an improvised explosive device that was left behind the terrorists, as well as a map of where the bomb was placed, within Israeli territory and only 25 meters from the border. The site is unmanned, but Israeli soldiers reportedly often patrol the area. It is clear when terror group or organized men were formed, the IDF spokesperson said. The military disarmed the explosive device and it studied it to determine the identity. Nonetheless, the military said it holds Syrian responsible. Normally, the IDF do not discuss or even confirm cross-border attacks. This was an exception, however, in what seems to be a strong statement to Syria and other countries like Lebanon, where terror groups are operating and launching attacks on the Jewish state. In response to the last night's attempted attack from Syria, IDF craft have struck various military targets belonging to the Syrian army forces. Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan attack on Israel will not be tolerated. Another less talked about the airstrike also occurred in Syria just hours after the cross-border incident. The mysterious strike hit a military base in eastern Syria in the town of Abu Kalam, which lies along the Euphrates River just over the border from Iraq. Reports from different Syrian media differ. The state-run Sana news agency claimed that the strike only caused material damage, while the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights report 15 Iran-affiliated Iraqi fighters were killed. Also a threat to Israel's northern border is Lebanese-based terror group Hezbollah. The group has vowed revenge for an airstrike week ago on an Iranian weapons shipment in Damascus that killed one of their fighters. The strike was attributed to Israel, even though the Jewish state never acknowledged its involvement. Just a few days after that strike, the IDF thwarted that it was called terror squad attempting a cross-border attack. Israeli troops fired on the group of armed Hezbollah fighters who had crossed into the Israeli territory, driving them back into Lebanon. The terror group denied that it was an attack and especially that it was their big act of revenge that Hezbollah vowed is still coming. Israel is taking the threat seriously and the military remains on high alert to guard Israel's northern borders.
So far, we are seeing about the science happening in Israel. After seeing all these, definitely need a break. Don't go anywhere. We'll continue after a short break. Welcome back to Science Lab. The science are happening because Lord Jesus is coming. Before the break, we are seeing about the science happening in Israel. Let's continue. As Israel, like many other nations, deals with the coronavirus and its economic fallout, over 1 million Israelis have found themselves without work and many are going hungry. Seeing the need and finding a creative solution, a few young Jerusalem residents started a new initiative that will help feed the hungry and reduce food fast. Jerusalem residents started a new initiative that will help feed the hungry and reduce food waste.
The Fridge project has popped up in Jerusalem and other locations across the Jewish state, in which vendors place their unused food into the public outdoor refrigerators, at the end of the day making it available for people to take what they need. It's a win-win. The food doesn't go to waste, and people who find themselves struggling to make ends meet during the COVID crisis receiving desperately needed one.
The first photos of one of the outdoor refrigerators spread across social media in June, announcing the new initiative. "We are not crying, you are crying," Israel announced on its Twitter page, along with a photo of the fridge. The page is run by the Foreign Ministry's digital diplomacy team. "We love this incredible initiative by Jerusalem's young residents to feed the needy and prevent food waste," the Israel Twitter post continued. The project was applauded by people around the world, many who said their own cities should emulate the Fridge initiative. Since the start of the pandemic, more than 1 million Israelis are unemployed, not including those who have been placed on unpaid leave. The nation's leaders are considering heading into another lockdown in a few weeks to curb the further spread of the virus, meaning even more people will likely lose their livelihoods. Yet amid the uncertainty, bright spots like the Fridge project bring hope and joy as the people of Israel go out of their way to help each other through this uncertain time. Israel is not only helping its own people, it is helping the whole world. The Israeli delegation, led by the Directorate of Defense Research and Development in the Israel Ministry of Defense and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, have completed its mission in India, collecting sufficient samples to test and validate 4 Israeli diagnostic technologies. The team returning to Israel with more than 20,000 samples collected from COVID-19 patients. Regarding Israel's defense attachment to India, Colonel Asif Malar said, "The goal is to bring to the world the technological capability to perform rapid corona tests within tens of seconds." Head of the delegation on behalf of the DDR&D, Lieutenant Colonel Yaniv Meirman said, "We are in the midst of processing and analyzing the data that we have collected and will continue this process upon our arrival to Israel. We are optimistic and hopeful that we will put in place a system for the rapid diagnosis of the coronavirus." The joint team is returning to Israel upon meeting its ambitious goal of collecting more than 20,000 samples from verified coronavirus patients within 9 days. They set up 6 drive-in sites in the city of Delhi for sampling purposes and 2 labs for data processing using technology brought from Israel. The government of India assigned hundreds of local professionals to collect the samples from thousands of volunteers via non-invasive means. 4 types of samples were collected from each patient: sound, saliva, breath, and a swab test. The activity was supervised by joint Israeli-Indian teams at all sites, ensuring that everyone complies with predetermined guidelines and regulation. The samples that were collected were inserted into systems based on artificial intelligence, enabling the DDR&D personnel and representatives of Israeli industries to begin processing and analyzing the data. This procedure will continue upon the return of the delegation to Israel. Israel's defense attachment to India, Colonel Asaf Miller said, "The goal is to bring to the world the technological capability to perform rapid corona tests within tens of seconds, which will enable the opening of airports, office buildings, schools, train stations and more." The Indian support for the project is amazing. All research and development bodies, including the scientific advisor to Prime Minister Modi, have joined the cooperation in full force. We hope that in a few months, we will be able to bring good news to the world. Head of the delegation on behalf of the DDR&D, Lieutenant Colonel Yanav Mehrman said, "We came to India to enrich Israeli diagnostic technologies, and while there we found real partners who were fully committed to the success of the mission. We are in the midst of processing and analyzing the data that we have collected and will continue in this process upon our arrival to Israel. We are optimistic and hopeful that in the near future, we will put in place a system for the rapid diagnosis of the coronavirus, which will make it possible to further open the Israeli economy, open the skies, and reduce the damage caused by the pandemic." The activity in India was conducted under strict guidelines and regulations to ensure the safety and health of all those involved. During their stay in India, members of the delegation underwent 3 coronavirus tests and were found to be negative for the virus.
Israel is a timepiece we should watch out in these last days. All these incidents that are happening in and around Israel will show us what is the time we are living in. All this shows that we are living in the last days. Lord Jesus Christ is coming again very soon. Thank you for watching this episode. Don't forget to tune into Science Lab next time.
Now we'd like to end the program by asking you a question. What was the new initiative launched in Jerusalem to help feed the hungry? Option A, Fridge Project. Option B, Oven Project. And option C, Basket Project.
Send us the right answers to sciencelab@angeltv.org. If you have missed any of the episode, don't worry. You can watch it again and again in our Science Lab YouTube page. But don't forget to like, share and comment on this video.
Ask your friends and relatives to watch the Science Lab so that they will know that we are living in the last days. Remember, signs are happening because Lord Jesus is coming. Maranatha.